Assalamu alaikum. How's everyone doing this evening?
Welcome to our third week of the importance of the Muslim family.
It's been 3 weeks already.
It's our third week. Our fifth session. Back to the brothers.
Alhamdulillah.
And today we are talking about parenting. So we started off with oneself, then we went into marriage, and now we are looking at parenting. So we have two good brothers with us this evening. You ready for them? Took this down a little bit.
Let's see.
You ready for these good brothers? You got it?
Mm-hmm.
All right, so we were giving people a little bit of time to filter in. Looks like you got a comment
already. People engaged already. I like it. All right. So our first brother, he sent me a bio, right? But the more I get to know this brother, the bio doesn't really give him justice. You know, brother Malik Shaw, who's currently in Memphis, Tennessee. This brother is a phenomenal brother. He just was appointed the executive director of MANA, which is the Muslim Alliance of North America. I mean, how honored are we? You know, to have one been interviewed by him previously, and now he's coming on to our show to talk about the importance of marriage. Let's bring in brother Malik Shaw. Assalamu alaikum.
Uh-oh.
Oh, you're muted.
Yeah, you on mute.
The words of the year, right? You're muted. I'm sorry. Is the light better?
Yes,
you're good. Yeah. Alhamdulillah.
Thank you for having me, man. It's an honor.
No, brother. It's an honor for you to be here with us, brother. Mashallah. The next brother who we're gonna bring on is a good brother of mine, brother Kwame Thomas of Kwame Nation. Assalamu alaikum, brother.
Alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah.
How you doing, brother?
I'm doing well, alhamdulillah.
Brother Malik, this is brother Kwame. Kwame, this is brother Malik.
Assalamualaikum.
Nice to digitally meet you. Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah.
Right. Alhamdulillah. So like Ndola said, we're going to be talking about parenting. You know, one of the things about, especially in Muslim families, is that, you know, you get married and then you have children. So there's going to be some parenting involved in that, right? And so we want to, you know, like Ndola was saying, we get a brother's perspective of it, and then we get a sister's perspective of it. You know, so just to kind of begin, how many children do each one of you have, Brother Malik, and the ages as well?
So I have 5. 20, 21, 17, 15, 13, and 11. Yeah, because we're on the odds. That helps me, man. It's the odds. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, man. So you're a little experienced in the parenting thing.
Yeah, a little bit. Fingernail full, a little bit.
Right, Brother Kwame, what about you?
So I have 3, and where he's ending is where I'm starting. So 11 years old, 9 years old, and 7 years old.
Alhamdulillah. Yeah, we have all girls, and it's 13, about to be 11 in May, inshallah, and then 7. And so we're just kind of getting started on our journey as well. You know, we got that first teenager, you know. Yeah, alhamdulillah, they have a good example, you know what I mean, in a mother like Ndola.
I'm trying.
Right. Alhamdulillah. So what how has the parenting journey been? You know, like Brother Malik, you I know that you reverted back to Islam, and did you have children prior to that?
No. So no, I didn't have. I mean, and then I came from. My parents got divorced.
Okay.
So yeah, when I converted, I got married. Then had kids.
Alhamdulillah. So you didn't have that challenge of trying to adjust with the children as well as you're adjusting yourself.
No, you know, it's interesting, man. I think I was adjusting parenting because when my parents got divorced, unlike probably about 80 to 90% of kids, I lived with my father after my parents got divorced. So one funny story, when I first got married, my wife, so we move in, we're living together, and my wife like cooks dinner, and she said, "All right, come on, let's sit down at the table." And I was like, "The table? Like we have to sit at the table?" You know what I'm saying? Like we gonna sit at the table?
Right.
Sit here on the couch and eat dinner? Like, because I didn't come from that structure, in my house. It was me and my father.
Yeah. Okay. What about you, Kwame? What was it like to? Because I know that you also reverted, and I know you had all your children in your marriage that you're currently in as well. And so, what was for both of y'all? What was the adjustment like of what your ideals of a parent was versus what it actually is like?
Well, let's see. So my ideals of what it was that, I basically just provide and make sure they have what they needed. But what it is it's a challenge to my character every day is what it is.
Right.
So, I mean,
provide the needs.
It's much more than just providing. It's a test to just to the what you say you living up to is like it's a test of saying, okay, yes, I'm going to live up to this every day. So I mean, it just shows that they're intelligent children. And they have their own personality, and you just can't just tell them what to do, and that's the end of it. It's truly a growing experience.
Yeah. Yeah, Brother Malik, you have a 21-year-old. So like, what is that journey been like?
So it's funny, man, because I was just thinking about this today, actually. Before she was born, so when I was in college, I was a janitor, and I used to clean Babies R Us. I don't know if y'all, it's defunct, Right. So while I was there, and I would be mopping the floors, I would see these parenting magazines, and so I would pick up them, and they were free. So I would pick them up, and I put them in my pocket, like I'm probably gonna need this. So I would read all of these parenting magazines, man, and it's been cool. To be honest with you, it's been really cool. I don't think there's anything more challenging, more humbling. If you think you may think something good about yourself, you get to walk in and put a pin right in your balloon.
Literally.
If you were feeling good about yourself today, let me go ahead and help you out with that.
Right.
But no, it's great, man. Parenting it makes you really, really appreciate your parents. One night I was in the hospital with my daughter has asthma, the oldest. She had really bad asthma. We were in the hospital all night, and I called my father the next day and told him thank you, because you don't really get it until you're in the hospital. You realize that when somebody was doing this with me,
right?
So it teaches you gratitude, unlike anything else.
Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned your father, because it's like I remember when I had my first, right? I didn't really start crying until he came to the hospital. When he came, I broke down. It was like it was like this feeling that, man, like I'm a father now, and I got my father who's been a great father. Alhamdulillah. He passed some years back, mashallah, and may Allah be pleased with him. And it was just this overwhelming feeling, man, to see his son have a child. You know what I mean?
Crying.
Yeah, it was amazing, man. It was a great cry, as they say. It was a great cry. Yeah, it was a great cry.
I was definitely looking around like, what y'all crying for? Y'all didn't just have a baby.
I just went through all this pain.
It was almost 2 days of labor, and you're crying. What's happening?
Right.
Yeah, I remember when as I've gone through this parenting journey, the thing that was kind of shocking for me was realizing that my parents were always people. Like, they weren't people when I was little. It was my parents. And I don't even remember what happened, like what the thing was. I remember at some point thinking, oh, snap, that's why they're people. Like, people struggles and people challenges, people traits, and just people, they're people. And that definitely shifted my perspective so much.
Yeah.
I know that's one of the things that I guess to some degree worries me sometimes, because it's like, you know, I'll have be a concern that, you know, my struggles may, you know, affect my children in a way that, you know, I don't intentionally want them to be affected, you know, because you want them to have the best, and you want them to grow up the best, and some shortcoming that you may have, you don't want that to cause them to later down the line have to deal with that same issue in their own life. But like you said, we're people, so, you know, we're in this to grow and to struggle through whatever it is that we're, you know, going through, and our children are right there beside us, you know, experiencing that as well. So, you know, just keeping that in mind is like, you know, it's definitely another part of that challenge to make sure that, you know, I'm trying to do the best that I can so that, you know, they can have the best, you know. So,
Yeah. And, you know, it's interesting because it's like the journey, it seems, and Brother Malik, you could probably attest to this, the journey, it seems so fast, man. You know what I mean? Like our oldest is 13, like your oldest is 21. It's like, we have to talk about, you know, really appreciating the present time right now, because it don't last forever. You know, it doesn't last forever.
No. It's funny, man. I was just thinking about that as well earlier. That, like, I remember the day she was born. And, you know, you remember when all your kids are born and you look up one day and, you know, just parenting, in my opinion, you know, one of the things my father used to tell me, and one thing is, as I, you know, read more about parenting, it has an end game. There's an end point in terms of being hands-on. You're always going to be a parent. Like, I'm always going to be my father's son. I'll always be my mother's, you know, son. But they're, in terms of that real grimy input, you know, when they're like 5, 6, I mean, you in it. And then you notice even when they turn 7, there's a light switch that goes off. And you can't parent them like they're 5. Right? And then so you have a 13-year-old. When you'll notice when they hit 14,
it's coming.
We
were talking about that. What was that, yesterday? So I'm real big on. I'm a very scientific kind of person. Like, I want to understand the structure and the logic and the why. But of course, you don't always get answers. But with parenting, alhamdulillah, there are some instructions for us, right? Like the parenting. And so when I learned about it, the 7-7-7, I taught it to my children. Like, all right, look, you're 5, but you got about 1 more year. You know that. Teaching them through the play, and then the discipline, and then the advising and befriending them. And some people definitely thought I was a lunatic for doing that. Like, you know, you're supposed to do this and do that. And I'm like, one of the biggest things that I complained about in terms of how I was parented was I didn't feel like things were explained to me enough. So sure, I probably was a bit of a smart aleck. I can admit that. But a lot of my questions were genuine. I really did want to know why. And so maybe it was a bit overwhelming because it was 5 of us. And, you know, you got one that wants to know why about everything. That's a lot. But I only have 3. So it was like, okay, this is something that I think I can manage. And what I realized was not only did they adjust to it, they teach each other. So like Jalila and Aziza will say to Sarah, you're 7. You're about to be in this discipline. Like, you need to get it together because the discipline years are serious. So,
yes.
13, it's like, all right, you're coming out of that really intense discipline. And the discipline, subhanAllah, I didn't know it was going to get like that. But it got like that. And now she's coming out of it, and it's like, okay, you're about to be 14, inshallah, next year, and we'll be able to guide you very differently. And like I said, it hasn't been hands-on with her for a while because she's very independent, but just the idea that she understands that she's supposed to advance through these stages in a certain kind of a way. It's really been a beautiful thing to know about. Like, take my sanity a little.
At least then you know it's an end game. Like, there's an end point. You know, it's funny because my master's is in education. So Piaget, when you look at that from 0 to 7, play with the child, the Piaget is like, he's the guy in terms of the pedagogy for, you know, younger kids, and he says what work is to the adult, play is to the child. Like, it's essential for a kid to play. And a lot of these European countries, they don't start school till they're 7 years old.
Yep.
Because they say, like, kids need to get this play out of them, you know, because that's how they learn. But we kind of rush kids and, you know, like, hurry up, you know, you're 3, you should be reading, you know, War and Peace by now. You know what I'm saying? Like, you should be writing, you know, speeches at 5. Hey, because it's like, hurry up and then wait. So when they get 16, 17, hey, wait till you start, okay? They hurry up and wait. Hey, and that's frustrating for them as well. And as a parent, you know, it's frustrating. I've seen parents who look at their 17-year-old who doesn't want to get a driver's license, and that they have to drive them around. And I think, man, my father would never, you know, my father was like, hey, take that bike, man. I'm not.
I'm buying my bus pass. Right. Because you should earn some money by now.
Yeah. No, you 13, man. You can go on out of it, man. I'm not going. I'm not taking you. I'm not taking you anywhere. I've been working all day.
Yeah. What is that adjustment though, as far as like how we might have been brought up versus how we're bringing our children up, you know, especially with, you know, the emphasis being on Islam, and wanting to really cultivate it in a way that it's a beautiful thing. It's not taught from this sinful direction, you know, where everything is so stay away from this, stay away from that, instead of embracing the beauty of Islam. You know, what is that evolution like?
So none of us grew up in Islam. You're the only one.
You're the only
one. We all came. We all came to
unicorn here.
This is gonna be good. Then.
You have that fire and brimstone. I was actually curious. A similar question for you, Kwame. I know you grew up similar to me in the whole Pan-African kind of thing. What differences do you see? Because I think when my parents became Muslim, they were a bit misinformed. We were all misinformed about being able to, how do we retain our culture and be Muslim? But you became Muslim a lot older than, you know, my siblings and I did. So I was wondering, how do you, like, is it something that you do? Like, does it come up, the whole kind of Afrocentric thing in Muslim, or do you just focus on the Muslim, or like, have y'all even talked about that?
Yeah, it comes up, and I mean, yeah, we were raised like with a very deep, you know, education about our history, you know. So, and it's funny because my wife Zakaya, her parents actually, she was raised in Islam, but her parents actually raised her with a deep history in African history as well. Right. So that importance of our culture and our history, that was something that kind of easily came as far as like, you know, this is where we come from. This is what, you know, our past is about. This is kind of why the things are the way they are now, you know. So, you know, that part of it came easy. I think, you know, being new to Islam, you know, trying to understand how to, you know, practice the deen and also bring in those African cultural practices. That's where, you know, it gets kind of tricky sometimes for me. Just try out of that fervor to want to practice, you know, the deen as best I can, you know, and that's always something that we all struggle with. It's like, you know, I want to be the best Muslim ever, and so that means I'm not going to do none of this, you know. So, you know, so it's a struggle, you know, trying to, you know, have that balance. But you know, alhamdulillah, my parents they've always been very patient and very understanding of this, you know, this journey that I'm on, and you know, I'm always trying to share that with them, you know. So it's been a good thing. It hasn't been too challenging, but at the same time, it is something that, you know, we all do experience, you know. So
yeah.
Did you want to ask something, Malik?
No, I'm Alhamdulillah.
I did forget that I was the only on this call, that I was the only one that was born and raised actually Muslim. And you know, from that experience, it was like that's the way that we were taught. It was like, this is haram, this is a sin, don't do it, don't do it, don't do it. But it didn't. We never heard about the beauty of certain acts that are also halal, you know, done in the right way. And so just trying to instill that in our children, to give them a different perspective to where it's not this fear-based practice, you know.
Can I ask you a question?
Yep.
What do you feel like your parents did that helped you to retain?
I mean, just the emphasis on prayer, man, you know, just the emphasis on thanking your Lord, you know what I mean? And the environments that they kept us in, you know, it was always some positive environments. Even if negativity was going on, the environment was typically very positive environment, you know. And I think that with those constant reminders, it was like at a point I had to choose for myself, you know. But with those constant reminders, I felt very strong about my belief in Islam and you know, oneness of Allah, and that, you know, He is in control of everything. And I really felt like I would have been really struggling if I did not choose Islam. You know, because my foundation is nothing but Islam, and I felt very, very connected, and it was easy. That was the easy road for me to take, even in the midst of the foolishness that was around me sometimes. You know what I mean? That was the easiest road to take because it felt most natural. You know what I mean? It felt less stressful than any other thing that I had a option to be able to go in what direction, you know.
Hey, Brother Kwame.
Yes.
What is something? What is the thing that your parents did that you really stays with you?
Well, when it comes to like as far as my Islam, my father was very encouraging as far as, you know, developing my spiritual self. You know, like I remember him taking me on a retreat up in the mountains with, you know, his friends, and they built this big hut, and you know, they would put the stones in it. It was like I forget what they call it, but basically you're sitting there and you sweat like crazy. And you know, but it's meant to be some kind of a purification kind of thing.
Yeah.
But you know, but just being out there in nature and just, you know, just having time to think about, well, what am I doing here? What is my life all about? You know, so to have that kind of encouragement at a young age, you know, it was always, you know, it gave me that light to just follow this calling to find out who God is, who Allah is. You know, so you know, I remember when I found about Islam, you know, I thought, you know, I didn't even know anything about the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. But I was like, you know, I'll find out more about him. I just like the fact that I can pray 5 times a day. So, you know, alhamdulillah, my parents, I think one of the things that they really put in me was the fact that there's a God. You know, there's a higher power that's controlling all of this, and be thankful and have gratitude for that creator. You know, so that was because we didn't do the church. You know, so I mean, that was something that kind of happened in high school. But you know, alhamdulillah, that grounding in just believing in a God, kind of naturally just allowed me to flow right into Islam.
Because I would say, man, I mean, you look, you know, mashallah, man. I know you must be cool if you're cool with Ayub, mashallah. Because you seem like you come from good people.
Yeah.
It's funny because like my parents know half of the Muslims over here. Like, it's like what? So, it's very interesting. Like the whole community over here, we all kind of were some kind of way interconnected. You know, so alhamdulillah. I appreciate that.
So I got a time. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, Bismillah. Go ahead.
I mean, mine can wait. So.
No, Miss. Oh, whoa. Hey,
I got the line. We're trying to get you. No, Bismillah, go ahead. So one of the things that I wanted to make sure we talked about, aside from like, you know, the Islamic point of view of parenting, kind of like our own stuff, everything we've discussed, is how dynamic and different parenting is now in a way that it's never been in the history of the world. So the main thing is the obvious social media, but connected to that is internet, right? And so one of the things so we only have 3 kids, of course. We have daughters. I have a few milk babies out there, alhamdulillah. But I have been an educator for a while. And so, you know, when you teach children, they kind of become a part of your family. And when they have solid families and you establish a connection with them, that can persist. And so I feel like I have a lot of kids out there that I really am connected to and I really love very much. And being connected to them, I learned a lot of the struggles they had were like ours, but so magnified. It was like times 100. Yeah. And when I sat down to try to figure out like what really is the issue, it dawned on me that when we were young, we had the same issues, right? The same kind of foolishness would come to mind, but we were very limited in how many people we had access to support our foolishness. If they weren't around us or on the phone or a bus ride or a bike ride away, then we didn't have access to support for our foolishness. But what we did have was our aunties and our uncles and our teachers and our coaches and our friends that would probably not support our foolishness. So we either had to keep it a secret or it was short-lived. Yeah. Now you can literally want to do or say or be anything and find massive support for it immediately in real time, no matter how detrimental, no matter what. And so I feel like it's unprecedented. Like what we have to contend with is unprecedented. And I really want to, like, even though this is just part of the series, this is one of the things that I'm super passionate about. And I want to have more conversations about, because it's like legit the souls of our children are at stake because of this change. And so I was wondering, like, what were you guys' thoughts and experiences with this? I know, Malik, you have such a variety of ages, so your children have had a bit of a different experience than mine, but Kwame, ours is about the same age. And so we probably had similar experiences. Like when our kids was born, this was here versus yours. They kind of it a little bit more. So yeah, I was wondering what, if you guys could contribute to my thesis, my running thesis. I guess.
You got it.
You got it, yeah, because you got the experience.
So yeah, I would say probably one of the biggest challenges of today is the auntie and uncle part. Outside of my wife, part of the reason I always tell people, I even tell my kids, part of the reason why I married their mother is because I thought she'd be a good mom.
She says that.
And
same here.
Yeah.
There you go, right? And subsequently, my daughter's aunties are they are a lot of the reason why they are who they are. You know, and you know, some of these women, I was just talking to one of them last week, and you know, I was telling her, like, man, you really, and look, this is real sentimental for me, okay?
It's okay, brother. You're in a safe place, brother.
Okay. Because I had an aunt that without my aunt, my life would have went all over the place. And so I always wanted my kids to have aunties because I know how powerful aunties are. And alhamdulillah, they have really good aunties. And mashallah, I think moving here in Open Midtown, now my son has really good uncles. And you know, that formulate, because kids get tired of their parents.
Yeah.
And it's just, you know what I mean? It's just normal. Like, okay, and then I can only be dad. I can't be the fun uncle and then, the cool auntie. Like, no, I'm your daddy, right? Like that's my role. Now, for somebody else, I'm the cool uncle, right? Right. That's my role. So, you need other people. And I think one of the problems of today is that we feel like we have to be everything instead of being humble enough to just ask other people, hey, I need a little help. Can you come through? I remember asking, sisters, hey, can you just come through and pick my daughters up like on the weekend? Like, give me 1 weekend a month. That's all I need. Like 1 week, I'll give you the money. And mashallah, you know what it turned into? Is that they wouldn't even, they would they would see it as a sense of duty.
Yeah.
Because they knew they had people who did that for them. And so we all just fall in place. So a lot of times just asking people for help. Being humble enough to, I know where I end. Like I know I take myself only so far. Right? I can only take you so far, and then I have to say, well, okay, train ride's over. Somebody else got to come in and take you the next step.
Right.
So that's what I would say is one of the bigger challenges today. And people have to be, we have to move around people we love and people we like.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
That like.
They're not the same.
It's not necessarily.
Not the same. Right, not the same, man.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Kwame, you got anything to add to that?
No, I appreciate that he went first because that makes a lot of sense as far as to why I think my children are happy. Because yeah, it's a bunch of us. It's like it's only 3 on my side, my brothers, but all of them have children, and we're very active with each other. So they see their cousins and they hang out with them. So it's like you were saying, Brother Malik, that's a change of scenery. It's like they're not just seeing me all the time. And then on my wife's side, oh man, that's football team over there. So they have plenty of people over, and they're very active in their lives as well. So I'm very appreciative of that. It definitely takes a weight off. Just the fact that if I gotta work, it's like, hey, you go with your grandfather. You over there, and it's like I can have that space, but. And then also they can have the space as well, So I definitely am appreciative of that aspect of it. As far as I think you were wanting to know how I guess we challenge the whole issue of social media and parenting now. So yeah, I guess for us, it's a matter of sheltering to some extent, and thinking about my upbringing, I probably was very sheltered, but again, I'm appreciative of that. It's like, not to just be out there and have to experience all of that stuff just to feel like that's what's going to make me a whole person. It's not necessary in some degrees. I mean, somebody else may feel different, but yeah, I'm very appreciative of my experience, and and that came from a certain level of sheltering from elements. I remember like how my older brother, he'd be out playing in the street, and me and my younger brother had to play in the front yard. I'm like, well, I want to go out in the street too. But so alhamdulillah, with our children, we just try to implement some sort of barriers from that social media lifestyle without making them feel like they're not experiencing it at all. So it's like, yeah, they can get on their tablet and play some games, but it's only for a certain amount of time, and it's like, what game is that you play? And try not to, it's a challenge. That balance is definitely a challenge because I don't want to push them away, but at the same time, I just don't want to give them free reign to do whatever it is they want to do. So
right.
Yeah.
That balance is definitely something I always am trying to seek out.
Yeah, I think that balance is it's going to be a constant battle. Because all the children are different, nobody's the same. And so what one might need, the other one, you don't even have to worry about that with.
Yes, yeah.
You know what I mean? And so just learning and really,
it's so fun.
really paying attention to the children,
Yes.
and really that, I was a village child. I had a lot of elders and people and grew up in a clique of brothers, and, some of us are still close to this day. And there's a lot of benefit in that because there's accountability that comes along with that. You don't want to disappoint those that invested so much into you, kind of situation. And I think that all of us have that same kind of feeling that we want to instill in our children. We're showing them that hard work ethic that, this is for y'all. It's not necessarily for me. This is for y'all benefit, and being able to translate that in more than just words, Yeah.
I wanted to, I know we have a few people watching. I just wanted to tell the people in the audience, if you have something you want to ask of us, please feel free to leave a comment. But one thing that you said, Malik, that struck me, I saw it in my students before I saw it in my own children, but that shift from being your children's whole world to them really not stunting you no more. I was so glad it didn't happen to me personally first, because I would have been so shook. Like, what have I done wrong? But when I saw it in my students, I like to know why. So I looked it up. And it's a whole like biological evolutionary link, why it happens, why it makes sense. And so when it finally happened, I just told Aziza was the one, she's been the one. I was like, look, this is supposed to happen. Like, this is normal. Like, you're not heard of it. She was like, huh? You're not offended? I'm like, nah, sis, because this is your own course. Like, this is when you're small, you connect to me, I connect to you, we do our thing. But if that never changed, how do we build communities? How do we have societies? You really can't. Everyone's only investing in themselves and their offspring. But that shift helps those connections to the aunties, the uncles, the coaches, the teachers, and it helps build really strong connections outside of her nuclear family.
Yeah.
And so when hers was so sharp and so unexpected that if I hadn't known that it was normal, I would have thought something was wrong with the girl. She was mommy, what's our favorite food and what's our favorite color? She was that kid.
Yeah.
And then she was, can you please not hug me? Like, night and day. And I was like, oh God, what happened? Oh yeah, this is that thing. Yeah. Speaking of which, nobody reminds you of the puberty, prepubescent 10, 11, 12 stuff. They always talk about teenagers.
Yeah.
It's 10, 11, 12.
Something else happens.
7, 8, 9. It's the prepubescent time that is challenging that I was not prepared for. Again, saw it in my students and I looked it up like, wait, what is happening right now? Yeah. And I saw somebody post on Facebook like, why does nobody prepare you for 10-year-old attitude? I was like, 10-year-old attitude? What? And I feel like if we talked about it more and like, not necessarily put your kids in the street, but just, in a way of talking with in our circles, on our platforms, whatever, we could for one, be a little more prepared. Because I think a lot of parents feel rejected in that time, and then in their humanness reject the child in turn. They might have that kind of visceral response to the reject, because that rejection is intense. When it happens, the second one, she don't seem like she's gonna do it, right? She's chilling. She gets mood swings, but she's not rejecting the parents. The first one, it was a really intense thing where we did what you did, actually. We sat down and made a list. Who can we have pick her up? Who we trust, what they're going to say to her, who's not going to be like, girl, take that stuff off. Your parents is tripping. Because people say that to kids.
Yeah.
That's how she ended up in Tennessee for a while. I mean, not exactly this, but that's a part of it. Like, she, alhamdulillah, has totally come out of all of the intensity. But she still needs the auntie thing, and her auntie's in Tennessee. And so she went for a few weeks, and it was a great experience for everybody. Like, she was able to be with her cousins and not be big sister, but be big cousin. Yeah. She was able to be with the other kids. I think she came to your house a couple times.
Yeah. Kids need to be different roles. I mean, we need to be different roles. Like, we're at work, and when you're at work, you go home. You're not the same, as you are at work. Then when you're with your friends, all of us, when we're with our friends, we say stuff that, you wouldn't say at work. You laugh. Like, you can let your hair down. You can be somebody else. We go around our family. Your family's like, no, I saw you when you were 5 years old. No. Like, we need to be different people at different times in life. Be different roles, not different character, but just different expectations from us as, okay, I'm not dad now. And when my father comes around, my kids know, okay, the boss is here. Right? Like, my father could say like, hey, let them kids, when they were younger, let them kids eat some candy. I'm like, candy? Hey.
Like, nah.
But, they looking at me like, hey.
Right. Mouth spoken. He spoke.
You know what I mean? Like, hey, the guru has spoken.
Right.
And I just, go. And then that works for a period of time, right? And then you have to show them. And then, you have whatever. I can talk to my parents are very kind of respectful of my parenting style. When I homeschooled, my father initially was like, come on, man. What? Who does this? Right. You know what I mean? And then later, he would say, I'm not going to tell you how to raise your kids. He would say, I do not want any dumb grandchildren, though.
Mm.
You do whatever you need, whatever you want to do. My grandkids better not be stupid. You know what I mean? They better be intelligent people.
Right.
And that was his language. You know what I mean? That was his language, right? My father's not politically correct. So don't produce that, right? Just letting you know. And so, all right, I got it then, you know. So then that's extra motivation for me, you know, because it's just not about me. It's not about these are my kids. Like those are his grandchildren. That's my grandmother's that's my mother-in-law's grandchild. So yeah, my father-in-law, what are my grandkids looking like? What? So yeah, they belong. They're entrusted to you, but other people have expectations of them, and they don't look at them the same way you do.
Right. Yeah.
Alhamdulillah for that. You know.
Yes, that was something I had to kind of realize myself. You know, it's like, you know, my wife's family is, you know, is big and they're very involved in their lives. So it's like seeing, and this kind of speaks back to that whole thing about, you know, they're gonna get bored with you after a while. So, you know, grandpa come over, or you know, Biggie or whatever comes over, and they, you know, Biggie was like, wait a minute, I don't get that, you know, but at the same time, yeah. I remember when they were first born, they used to call her father Abu. I'm like, no, I'm Abu, you know. So we're gonna have to come up with another name for you. So, you know, I mean, but at the same time, like you're saying, you kind of have to realize that while they are entrusted to you, you're not. It's like they're their own person at the same time, and they have experiences that they're gonna have with other people. And when you're not around, they're gonna still keep living. So it's like, yeah, just having to realize that you brought this child into the world. And you have to allow them to you know, experience life. You know, you give them the best you can, but alhamdulillah, you know, they're their own person.
Alhamdulillah. And you know, alhamdulillah, I think we all come from backgrounds where we want to continue on legacy, right? Yeah. We really value our parents and the things that they were able to do with us as children, and we want to try to instill some of that. We're not throwing out the baby with the bathwater, you know what I mean? And I think that a lot of people, when they do that, they don't understand how much they're really tainting their connections. You know what I mean? Like Islam teaches us not to sever the wounds that bore you, right? And it's like you got to be able to, like Kwame, like you said, kind of be humble a little bit to understand that it's bigger than you. You know what I mean? Like it's not about you. You know what I mean? These are people too that will be here when you're gone. You know, and they're going to have your grandchildren, inshallah, and it's going to continue on. And so I think the more that, you know, that history aspect is taught in families, I think the greater and the stronger the communities will be, because it'll be a more intense and a more purposeful intent to keep families together and not just have children, but to actually have families, you know. And I think that that's one of the things about community that's important, is that you can't have community without family.
Oh yeah, I really appreciated that from my parents. Like you were saying, Ndola, we kind of had that similar community with the Afrocentric. You know, that they were big on like going over and having these events together. You know, having the schools that they brought together with, you know, everybody working together, children playing out. You know, I go hang over his house. Like that sense of community was very big, and that's one of the things I truly appreciated from them. And what I do appreciate from even, you know, the Muslim community is that, you know, they're big on, you know, wanting to, you know, have that connection. You know, so, you know, with this whole COVID thing, you know, it's a lot harder, but, you know, mashallah, you know, inshallah, we'll figure a way through it, and, you know, we'll continue to have that, you know, be able to provide that for our own children, you know, so that they can, you know, feel those connections and, you know, be able to, you know, connect with their friends as well, you know.
Yeah. Brother Malik, how are y'all handling the transition as far as from that communal aspect of the families and being able to parent the children in a way that's so different, because we're not in the masjids right now. We're not, the activities aren't there that help to strengthen our families' bonds to the communities that we are a part of. So how has that translated into parenting? What is that experience like?
You know, so at first, I mean, I guess everybody was locked up. We didn't really know what to do. You know, now, I mean, my kids are homeschooled, and so their teacher, you know, we had a classroom in the backyard. We like built a classroom in the backyard. So, you know, and now, you know, everybody just wears a mask. There are other kids in the homeschool. Their classes are the same. You know, their drum teacher comes, he drums, like, you know, he wears a mask. You know, we do what you would normally do, just wear a mask and stand a little bit farther apart from somebody. Gotcha. Now that we know, you know, I don't, you just do what you normally do, but just take the precautions and you tawakkul Allah. Like, do what you need to do and trust in Allah after that. So, you know, and we have other, you know, they have other family members, other family friends. It's the same thing. Because you know, you can't stay in the house forever. You know, particularly, we don't know what these kids are gonna look like who grew up in this. Kids are already struggling socially,
right?
Because of, you know, the internet and because of social media and because of texting, they were already struggling socially. Even if they thought like, nah, it's just the way we communicate. No, ask a child to pick up a phone and you could see the deer in headlights go off. That means they're struggling socially. Right. So now with the pandemic, you know, we have to ensure that this social thing, I mean, everybody focuses on academics. I'm not really worried, and I'm a teacher. I'm not really worried so much about academics.
Me neither.
Socially, what are these kids going to be like after this? We're weird. Adults are weird. Like, you know, you see somebody, you think of like, man, I remember a guy, I was at a brother's house once, and the brother came up, and I thought he was just about to like do this, and the brother like hugged me, and I was like, "Whoa, like, what are you doing?" You know. So if we're weirded out, you might be the child, because that's when you're learning how to socialize. When you're, you know, from like 7 to 14, you kind of learning like, okay, this is what I don't say this to grown folks. You know, I can say this to my friend. You learn how to communicate. And even, you know, hugging, like you hug your friends, you know, if you're a boy, you like, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like, all of that's being lost.
Yeah.
You know, and we really need to pay attention to that, because this internet and this online, and when we can say this is like their issue of, you know, there's a lot of teachers say that, you know, a lot of people say this is their. But to be honest with you, I have a friend who said he would rather give his child a gun than to give him free access to the internet. He would rather he hand his child, here's a pistol, than to give him free access to the internet. And you see why? Because at least the child would. Everybody's a little nervous when a gun gets around. You know what I'm saying? Like,
right.
Yeah. Calm down. You know what I'm saying? Hey, man, put that away, man. We don't do that with the internet. And that joke, I mean, you don't know what can pop up. It could be an innocent, I'm just searching for something, and something could scar you for the rest of your life.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, it is a challenge, you know, and I think that, like you said, like when she had her school, that was one of the biggest things was manners and how you socialize and interact with each other.
Yeah.
Because if you learn how to do that, you can basically learn anything.
Yeah.
Really the focus was on like emotional intelligence. Like, how do we engage each other? So like, yeah, you need to have life skills, you need to do this stuff. But if your child is 7 and not a strong reader, but they have excellent manners and they're empathetic and they can sweep a floor and clean the bathroom, are we really concerned? Now, if they're 10 and they can't read, all right, let's look at them. But 6, I'm not gonna sit this child in a chair for hours for reading lessons when they're doing what they're supposed to be doing at this age. They're playing with blocks, they're jumping around the room, they button shirts, they're sweeping floors, they're playing in the dirt, they're getting these gross motor and these fine motor skills happening. They're saying please and thank you. They're smiling when they talk to somebody. They don't, you know, they're not, the social cues are on point. And they understand when they hurt somebody. They know how to ask a question. Like, this is what is really, really important. And when I first started my school, I was using more of a Western kind of pedagogy kind of approach.
Right.
And it didn't feel right. Like the kids were learning, but I was like, this doesn't feel good. Like, and we did not make it a semester. I think we, right around it was like, I was like, we not doing this no more.
Yeah, we switched it up.
I called all the parents and I was like, I don't know how y'all feel about this, but I don't want to do this anymore. We need to make a huge change. And so I started looking at, Japan and Switzerland and Malaysia and all these international countries. Nobody has their kids sitting down learning to read at 4 except us. Nobody does that. But you know what they do? They take them on camping trips and give them Swiss Army knives.
Yep. And fire.
Fire. At 4 and 5. And I'm like, why don't we do that? We have the same 4-year-olds and 5-year-olds. Why can't we do that? And so it was just like by my second semester of my first year, it was absolutely different. And the children excelled academically as well.
Alhamdulillah.
So it wasn't like one in exchange for the other. It's like, no, yeah, you do need to know how to read. You know how to add and subtract and multiply and divide. You need to know how to do science. But if you're an excellent student and you're rude and unkind, are we really doing what we're supposed to do here? Because again, when they're your student, you really feel. I started telling my parents at orientation, like, we're co-parents for the next 10 months. We are co-parents. If you undermine me, it ain't gonna work. If I undermine you, it's not gonna work. Yeah. So we gotta be on the same thing. Yep. And I was like, I got too many kids. But it just, I don't know any other way to do it. You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't work. And then we had small groups. So we were able, you got 10, 15 students, you can be intimate like that. I never had a class of 50. But I know you probably had some of that, Kwame, because your wife had, she took a lot of kids home.
Oh yeah, we had this homeschooling going at for a little while, and it's a challenge. I mean, I can imagine how much of a challenge it is to, dealing with other people's children. Like you said, the parents might undermine what you're doing. They go home and it's like, so yeah, it's definitely a challenge. But this is why I appreciate this kind of a forum, because it's like, hearing like these different styles of because I might see my 4-year-old, like you said, and be like, well, yeah, you just be sitting down and reading a book, but to have those different views, because I don't know, like I didn't read no book, like you, Brother Bella, I didn't pick up no parenting magazine. I just like, I think I can figure this out, but
but you came from a tradition.
Yeah,
I mean, I think that was probably like you came from a tradition. I knew I didn't, when my parents divorced, my parents, and I saw both of my parents every day, even though after they divorced. I mean, they handled divorce, like, had kufis off, you know what I mean? But they lost a child. So in most people, I think like 70-80% people who lose a child, they divorce. So I knew I didn't come from that intact thing. So I had to study it. You came from tradition. Like inshallah, my kids won't have to do that work. And when me and my wife say this to our kids, we were growing, so there were changes along the way that once we evolved, once we edified ourselves in learning about like food or, something that we didn't grow up with. Right. I didn't grow up eating at a table. You know what I mean? So we learned more about food and like what's healthy and snap. Okay, so we changed, and we tell our kids hey, that change was because we learned. You know better, you do better.
Right.
So, and it's funny. My wife put one of the things we talk about is you hustle for your last name, not your first.
She put that on.
And that's let's
bring it back up for the folks.
It's not about you. You're part of a family. You hustle for your last name. Not your first name. You're part of a crew.
Right.
Yes, indeed.
So and don't embarrass your sisters. I tell my son, hey man, don't embarrass the family, man. I tell my daughters, like, no. When you feel like doing something, don't embarrass us. As my father used to tell me, don't embarrass me, I won't embarrass you.
Hey. It's real simple. Yeah. I think when the girls were small, I used to tell them, essentially don't embarrass me, but if you feel like you're gonna lose it, you need to lose it at home because you can get Yanked up at the, you know, I understand you might need to just, you know, have a place to do it. Do it when we get home. Don't do it in the car. I don't want to hear that on the ride.
Yeah.
Do it when we get home. But Kwame, you were saying about the like stuff you didn't know. I had one student that kind of changed my whole outlook, even after all the book learning that I did. I wasn't convinced. And I had this student, he was my little cousin. And I lie to you not, this kid would spin into the building, into my house every day, just twirling. He would touch every spot on the wall. He would leapfrog to the bathroom. He moved so much that I was tired looking at him. So I was like, I can't handle this. Like, he just moves too much. Like, I can't get him to do anything that's not constantly moving. He did circle time jumping up and down. He buttoned his shirt doing flips across the floor. Like, he just never stopped. So a part of it was his sugar consumption was out of control. So me and his mom had sit downs. He went off of sugar, but the energy was still very high. And I was very concerned about what he was learning. And so I will never forget. I was trying to figure out how I was going to tell his mom, my cousin, and his dad, you know, my cousin, I don't know if I'm teaching your son well. And so we bring him in and I'm like, hey, you know, let's call him Muhammad. Can you say your alphabet? Bam. Can you count to 100? Bam. Can you count backwards from everything we have been teaching him to do? And I was like, can you put in your shirt? Can you sweep that floor? Everything, like literally every single days of the week, months of the year, the adding, the subtracting, he just did it moving. And so his moving was a distraction for other students. So we carved out a space that was his corner. This is Muhammad's corner. Y'all don't go in Muhammad's corner because he might jump on your head, literally, if he's jumping and not looking. And he did his stuff all over his corner. He had chalk and he had pots, and he might be doing math and he might whip out the cars and he's writing cars along the wall as he's doing his math facts or whatever. And I remember thinking, like, if we had sat him down, like, what kind of disservice would we have done to him if this is how he learns? And so it really just, and that was early, that was maybe the second year.
Yeah.
It changed my perspective on like education and parenting. Because sometimes we want our children to be who we want them to be, but it's not necessarily who they are. And so I think that it was a lesson for me on the parenting side in terms of just like paying attention to who these children really are and pay attention to the stuff that kind of gets on your nerves versus the stuff that's really not good. It gets on my nerves that he won't sit down. But is it not good though?
Right.
It's fine. He's learning. He's not hurting anybody. He's, you know, engaging. He has friends in school. I don't like the constant movement because it's a distraction. But is it really, you know, is it a detriment? And the answer was no. And so we just had to change all of his stuff. And I would reference that experience with the girls, like as they came along. They're so different. And it's like, I had to do this for Aziza, but it's not working for Charlie. Now it's not working for Sarai. We gotta change it up again and again, and it just is such a good lesson. It was a very good lesson.
No, kids are different. I mean, there's generally two types of children: compliant children and non-compliant. So it doesn't mean that they're bad. I mean, just some kids are just not. You got to explain. You have to explain it to. Some kids you say, "Hey, go run around the house 20 times." All right.
Right.
Some of your kids say, "Hey, go run around the house one time." Why?
Why?
Why would I do that?
I'm telling you, compliant and non-compliant.
Some kids parent them the same. Yeah. But non-compliant children get a bad rap because if you get them on the right thing, they're on that thing.
Yeah.
With what understanding. Because they may be the child. I mean, like Miss Owuo, like who needs to be explained to, and then once they explain to, they have it. You remember Ghazali talks about that when you're raising kids. He said early on you teach them what to say, Bismillah, Alhamdulillah. You teach them. Then he said in the middle you teach them understanding. Why are you saying this? Why are you saying Bismillah before you eat? Then he said, then they have conviction.
Yeah.
Right. But if you just stay with say this, Right now, wait, you know, like child never gets conviction. And just like in our society, if you're a convict, that's with you for life. A conviction is with you for life.
Yeah, yep.
And we want them to be convicted.
Yep.
Definitely.
No, you know, and you're blessed to have, you know, I mean, I have 5 kids, man. You have 3, you have multiple. If you have multiple kids, you have a compliant child, and you probably have a non-compliant.
Or when that's a blend of the two. I got one.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? You get a little swirl. Yeah. And then both are cool. I mean, you know what I mean? You know, they both pull out the best in you.
Yeah.
And that's why, you know, I feel like kids, they're the best educators in the traditional sense of educare, you know, the Latin word educare, which to bring out from within. Like kids bring out something. Your greatness comes out. You know, a good teacher brings out your greatness.
Yep.
And sometimes it comes out, you're like, you know? And a great parent does that too.
Yeah, I think the girls were probably 5 and 6 when I started explaining to them, like, the measure of how successful we are is how long we got to do this. How long do I have to teach you this same thing? You know, how long is this going to last? This type of thing. Like, can we have some new problems? And I don't know if it was a lecture or somebody was talking, but they were saying one of the biggest problems that we have with parenting in this country in particular is we always teach our children that we're responsible for them. And then all of a sudden you turn 18 or you turn 21 and you're not. And that's so jarring. Like, who knows how to really handle that? But the reality is we're responsible to our children and they are responsible for themselves, right? And so when I heard that concept, I was like, that is like genius. Like, how do I explain this to a little person? And I was like, no, I'm just going to go for it. So I started just saying it to them. If they would do something like, oh, well, mommy, I'm not responsible for you. You're responsible for yourself. You're the one that chose to do that. You're the one that has to deal with the consequence. I'm responsible to you. Like, so we got religion happening. I think you got a good mother. You're welcome. We got mine, got good names. You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah, you hit the lottery. Yeah, you did.
Your parents over here, you eat every day. You're safe. You got a nice bubble. Why do you do that? You didn't have to do that. You're gonna deal with the consequences of that because you're responsible for yourself. And in our responsibilities to you, we have to hold you accountable and make sure life isn't so easy. You don't know how to struggle. You don't know what it feels like to fail in some things. You don't know what it feels like to fall out of a tree or to lose a race or whatever. Like, kids sit down and play cards with us, they're gonna lose.
They ain't gonna let you win. I know that ain't gonna happen all the time.
It's not happening. So I might be gentle on the littlest ones, but a 10, 12-year-old, I be like, come get this work. But it helps.
I think that's one of the biggest changes. And when you talked about parenting earlier, kids need to struggle.
They do.
You need to lose. You need to struggle and lose because that's a part of life, just like winning.
Yep.
You know, but if it's all winning, that's spoiling a child when you don't give them reality. You know, it's not always about buying them something. It may mean just not disciplining them.
Yep.
Or it might mean like we're gonna do everything for you. No, that's not reality. My father used to tell people when we used to go visit family and their kids would do something. My father was very low tolerance on like misbehavior. Hey, yeah, low tolerance for that. So if somebody's child did something, he would say, "Hey, the only person who thinks that's cute is you. Nobody else thinks that's cute. And in fact, I'm leaving." He would take me out like, "Yeah, we go. I don't want you ever thinking that's okay."
Yeah, you be influenced by this.
Yeah. So no, it's good to for kids to lose a little bit. It's good to struggle. That's one
thing I appreciate about the deans that we're responsible. Yeah, we're responsible for ourselves, and you know, and we want the best for our families, but Allah puts each of us on our own course. So, you know, you do what you can to give your child as much as you can and as much love as you can. But, you know, in the end, whatever path that, you know, Allah has set for them, you know, that's what's going to happen. And I remember one of my teachers like, you rack your brain going crazy trying to figure out somebody else, you know. So, you know, alhamdulillah, you give them the love and the care as much as you can, but, you know, hey, this is their own person at the end of the day. I mean, you know, hey.
Yeah. Like you said, Miss Haygood, the job is to put yourself in an early retirement. And parenting, the point is to put yourself out of a job.
Give them the golden nuggets.
This is your responsibility. There you go. You know, then you can enjoy it. It'd be stressing when joke of 17, 18 years old, stressed because they won't, wash their own clothes or something like that. Like,
you gonna have stinky clothes?
Yeah, hey, I guess and that's why they should have the responsibility of doing that stuff that mothers do for the whole fam. You know, if a child, you should. All right, you washing everybody clothes this month.
Mm-hmm.
Yo,
yep.
Bro, that's so me. Man, these kids will be putting dirty dishes away. Oh, you just need more practice. You got to for the month.
Like a whole, hey, you got it for the month.
Thank you.
One thing I tell my wife is that you don't want your son-in-law or your daughter-in-law cursing you.
Facts.
Sure don't.
Did
your dad not show you?
Man.
Yeah. And that's something that we've said to the girls early, like, yeah, you're an individual and you have value in being an individual. But inshallah, you will be somebody's wife one day and you will be somebody's mother one day. And you need to have value in that as well. And a part of that value is tangible. And some of it is not. You need to know how to do everything for yourself. You don't need to go into a relationship planning on relying on your spouse to do anything for you, meet any of your needs. When they meet them, it's amazing. But you shouldn't need them to meet. You should be able to have a good meal by yourself. Have a clean house by yourself, clean clothes, be happy and content. And I think a lot of times we seek that in our spouse and that dysfunction goes down to our children. And so they seek it in somebody else and it kind of keeps going and going.
I think the goal, when you're teaching kids, like when they're young, so you have young kids, when you have young children,
Our children are about the same age. I think we had one, and then next year y'all had one, and then we had one, and y'all had one. And then our babies are 3 days apart.
Yeah, I think it's pretty much like that.
Yeah.
So when kids are small, they're totally dependent on you, and then you move them, and then they move themselves a little bit to being independent. And then we think like that's the end game, right? Woo, man, you're independent. But the goal. And the beautiful thing about having multiple kids is that they learn to be interdependent, to be relied upon and to rely on others, but you have to be able to be relied upon, And I wanted to say, like the sister, it's Tania. I hate to Burjos. Do you know this last name, Burjos?
I'm not sure how to say the last name. This one?
Yeah. When a child has experienced excessive losses, I think it's important to set them up to experience wins. Yeah, I would say yes. I don't want to come across as being, but I do think, because life is about winning and losing, But you don't want to be oppressive on the losses. But one of the things I've done with my own children, once they turn 7, when the law talks about test the orphans so you can see their maturity. My teacher tafsir on that was I should test my own kids when they hit 7 years old. So I would give them 7 tests and I would look at their personalities. And my oldest, I put her on a bus once when she was 7 years old. This was in Phoenix, not Memphis. In Phoenix. Memphis had to change the game up. Right. So when she was 7, I put her on the bus by herself. And So she didn't know it. I followed the bus, and I talked to the bus driver. Right.
Okay.
That's the things in place.
Right.
I'm giving away the secrets now, right?
Right.
So, but what I wanted her to get was, this is gonna be life to some degree. And I took her out of school when she was 7. And I remember having this talk with her. She was mad as I don't know what. I said, and this was a little extreme, right? It's not when you, as a parent, sometimes we can't be extreme.
Right.
She loved school, man. She loved school every day. So I said, all right, you 7 years old now. Game has changed. People have served you for 7 years. You have to give back to humanity. You about to be homeschooled. And this year, all she did, school this year is you're working in a food pantry. That was school for the year. And mashallah, she had a beautiful, like auntie who.
Interesting year.
She had her husband was a poet, so they used to teach her poetry. That was probably her best year. I mean, she probably was made to say, like, this is my best year of education.
Right.
I mean, that probably was a little extreme in 7 because she was crying, like, they got school. I love school. Like,
Yeah.
And my wife was like, what homeschool? What am I supposed to do with that? Right. It took us a while. I mean, alhamdulillah, later, like, she got footing, but it kind of goes to this thing of Allah always says, Allah will always take care of you if you're sincere and you're a parent. He'll give you guidance. And as parents, we have to really trust that as well. Trust that Allah's Allah's going to guide you. As long as you have good intentions and you're open to learning. Like learning from other people who've done it. That we don't have to have all the answers.
Yeah.
My students, I always tell them, it's okay not to know something. That's perfectly fine. What's not okay is to stay there.
Yeah.
So, alhamdulillah. Brother Kwame, so it seems like you all got a really good education.
Yeah, no, and now that you say that, that's another one of the things I think my parents did. And I tell my children, it's like, okay, all we had to focus on when we were children was making sure we got good grades. We didn't have to work. My parents, they took care of our food for us, clothes, everything. But all we had to do was make sure we got good grades. Don't come in the house with no C. That's that was our standards, and B even was looked at kind of.
I couldn't make B's.
Yeah, it's like, hey.
Well, I'm looking at you, sis.
I mean, I didn't want to be too extreme, but hey,
it's okay.
And I appreciate
it. Make B's.
What's up?
We told Aziza she can't make B's because she's an A student, though. It's
right.
Like,
I mean, you got to know their capability. If this is something that they're capable of, don't like lower the standard for them. Don't lower the bar. So. My mother, my father, we got straight A's, alhamdulillah, and I appreciate that importance placed on education because I could easily take that and now make sure my children are, hey, you can't just B, that's not okay, or no C, definitely not okay. So that's why I heard about the story about the child that got all the D's or something like that, and the mother was, and I mean I was like, well. How do you think just getting a D was okay in the first place? But people come from different experiences. So, I try to, alhamdulillah as a Muslim, I try to stay very understanding of people's different experiences, and just be open, like you said, stay open, But alhamdulillah, I definitely appreciate the value on education that my parents gave me, and that's I can see how that easily translates over to how I treat my children as far as their education.
Yeah.
Definitely. Now, alhamdulillah, man, I feel like, we can carry this conversation on for a long time with all the various experiences that we have and the rich history that we all come from. I think that we're trying to instill that in our children and carry on a lot of that rich history and build upon that. So, alhamdulillah, and I think Islam does a good job of really making you essentially carry on legacy. You know what I mean? It makes you know what I mean? Like if you instill the 5 pillars in your kids and your children and they really carry that on for themselves, like that foundation alone, man, it's solid. You know what I mean? It's solid. You can tear down the house, and if that's your foundation, you can build a bigger house.
True.
You know, you always have a ground level that's solid to come back to. You know, and I think that that's something that we all want to instill in our children. Is just these core principles that are it's bigger than just practicing the religion of Islam. It's about really being a great person and dutiful to Allah. You know what I mean? Dutiful to the one who made you, who created you, you know, and I think that that's very, very crucial for everybody. And especially now in this society where people have this thought process of, if I think something, that's what it is. You know what I mean? If I think I can do this, if I think I should be this, then that's what I should be. You know, and it's flawed. That type of thing. There is accountability that we as human beings should have. You know what I mean?
No, I mean, he comes. I'll say, you know, alhamdulillah, you all, as a convert, a lot of what you're trying to do is break cycles. You know, that were unhealthy cycles.
Right, unhealthy cycles. Yeah,
you're just trying to break cycles, right? So, like when I hear you all and how you were raised, you know, people, you were in school, you know, educated the same way. It was a collective in education. It sounded those were people who said we're going to work together. We're going to put our egos to the side. We're going to work together for the sake of these kids. You know, and then now, mashallah, I mean, you look at the fruit of that sacrifice. And alhamdulillah, like that's the goal. So I want to commend you all. You know what I'm saying? Like, you know, Mr. Thomas, Miss Awohuwo, and our brother Ayub. You know, I want to commend you all. You know, as you know, your parents. You know, you could tell, you could see the work that they put in. You know, alhamdulillah. So your kids come from a lineage. You know, they come from a tradition. They have it's mad, you know, to sound practice. Alhamdulillah.
Yeah, alhamdulillah.
They're still very actively, you know, involved as well. You know, making sure that grandchildren are getting it. You know, even
every time I ain't gonna be that kind of grandma. I need y'all to.
Yeah.
That was one thing that I had a mental note of, and I forgot to bring it up. And I know we don't have time to really dive into it, but the whole thing about lineage, like that's another thing that we talk with our girls about a lot in terms of recognizing and developing an appreciation for what our ancestors did for us. Like they may not have known our names, but they knew, inshallah, God willing, I'm going to do this thing and I'm not going to really get the benefit so much, but my grandchildren, my great-grandchildren, my great-great-grandchildren might. Like I know in his family, they have a very, very rich history. Someone, was it your great-great-grandmother? Great or great-great? I don't know. Somebody was a part of an organization that bought some land in like this cohort of Black landowners that was beachfront. It was one of the only Black beaches in the country at the time. And that was in the 30s. And their family still owns it. And so when we take the girls there, it's not just going to the beach. It's going to the beach in this house that your grandfather and your great uncles built on the land that their grandmother and grandfather purchased in the 30s when Black folks had very little in terms of real estate and wealth, and they kept it for y'all. They kept it for us and for y'all. And so there's a responsibility attached to that. Like we have to make sure we keep it for our great-grandchildren. And so, and it just kind of, it's, I don't know if it's like a really intense responsibility. On my side of the family, we got, you know, we have what we have. I'm sure you guys have what you have. It might not be land. It might be education. It might be, you know, whatever, manners, whatever the thing is, but just to keep that, keep the connection. And then to brag on his family one more time. We were doing the family tree thing this year and found out that his father's side is descendant of William Still, who was the father of the Underground Railroad. So he's, you know, he was homies with Harriet Tubman, who is Jalila's favorite person ever. So she was like, wait a minute, My something great grandfather knew Harriet Tubman. Are you serious? And it just like lit the spark in her. Like she hit me up last week, like, Mommy, this is the day Harriet Tubman died. What are we gonna do to honor her? And I was like, how do you know? This is the day.
Yeah.
From, but I mean, we've been putting that in them. Like, yeah, what you do is important, but you also have to connect it. Like, you do things you want to do, your own interests. That's great.
Right.
But we can't disregard the stuff that came before us. Like, that has to be a part of it. And that's our topic next week, right?
Yep.
Is lineage.
Yeah.
So we did oneself, and then marriage. Now we're doing parenting, and we have Sisters Friday, and then we have lineage next week, and then the final one is community. Because it feels like this, it's not linear necessarily, but kind of a line of like the trajectory of our lives that we don't necessarily, it can't be one conversation, but we don't talk about it, I think, in these kind of groups enough. And I like to talk about stuff.
You do.
It's good. You gotta talk. Hey.
No, I would commend you all. I mean, I think, we definitely need to talk about this stuff a lot more because it's something everybody can do.
Yeah, exactly.
Everybody who's married, like you gotta be paying attention and what kind of lineage you want.
Yeah.
What kind of parent are you gonna be? What kind of community you want to live in? Because it sounds like both of you speak of how community had a big impact on you. I know my parents when they went north. My aunts and uncles, they all lived in essentially the same city. When I would run away from home, I would run away to my aunt's house. Man, I'm sick of this.
Run away from home.
Like my father used to call like that boy over there. Hey.
I'm sick of this run away. It's
and essentially, you need community.
Yeah,
and we all should be people that people want to live around.
Yes.
There's some people you like, man. I'm straight. I see you at the masjid, man.
Right.
Neighbor, the Arabs say, pick your neighbor and pick your house.
Yeah.
The house don't really matter as much.
Mm-hmm.
Who you living next door to matters.
Oh yeah, yeah, big time.
Man, we've all had a shady neighbor. You know what I'm saying? Alhamdulillah. So I want to thank you all. Alhamdulillah. Thank you all for having me.
Alhamdulillah. Kwame, you got any last words, brother?
Alhamdulillah, man. I appreciate you opening up this opportunity for us to talk. I was kind of nervous at first. I'm like, hey man, we go Facebook Live. Dude, I'm trying to do cookbooks.
It's easy.
Hey, if you can do this, you cook, man.
Hey, brother, see, there you go. There's people watching.
Hey, go ahead and apply that pressure, man.
Oh, here we go.
Apply that pressure.
Oh, here we go.
Hey, go ahead and cut that diamond.
Oh my God. I'm sweating now. I'm sweating. Right. I just started sweating.
I appreciate it.
But alhamdulillah, thank y'all for joining us tonight, man. And hope everybody out in the audience enjoyed it. And whoever's going to watch this, I hope you got some benefit from the conversation. We don't like to just be out here just talking, just to be blowing hot air in the world. We want these conversations to be a benefit, And so, like Ndola said, we started with oneself, then we went to marriage, then we talked about parenting today with the brothers. We're going to talk about parenting Friday, inshallah, with the sisters. And then next week, we're going to talk about community. And then the last week, we're going to talk about legacy. And this is all kind of just to get the thoughts going about, what is your purpose here? What are you really trying to do? So that way, when we go into Ramadan, you kind of have some things that you're thinking about that you might want to, really, that's the time to ask Allah for stuff. That is the time. You know what I mean? So, if you have something that you really are desiring for yourself or you really want to change, and that is the time. So that was our intention in doing a pre-Ramadan series to kind of have these thought-provoking conversations leading into Ramadan. Alhamdulillah, I think this is the second night of Shaban.
Yeah, we should be in it. Yeah.
Yeah, second night of man.
So we
And
got 28 more days.
yeah, so time is ticking. You know what I mean? Time is ticking. So ready or not, you know, ready or not. No, inshallah. And all those people who out there in the world who listen to the non-Muslim, we ask you to join us in our fast. You know, fasting is not just beneficial for the Muslims, it's beneficial for humanity. Fasting teaches you a lot about yourself, you know, and the things that you know, and alhamdulillah, we got Google now. So if you don't know what you're supposed to do during Ramadan and fast, you can just Google it real quick. Shay, Google is real.
You can hit up the shit board.
Right.
I ain't join us for this thing, but I ain't gonna tell you about it though.
Right. Yeah, alhamdulillah. So, you know, inshallah, we'll see you all Friday evening. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Alaikum.
Alhamdulillah.